Hello and welcome to Channel Duello. The new Gwent expansion set, Way of the Witcher, is finally out, and it's time to review each card in the set. But I decided to do this in 7 parts instead of shooting a long video. Why am I doing this? First, that would be kinda boring. Second, the cards in this expansion seem to have strong interactions among themselves, and it looks like they are designed to be played in thematic decks. So I'm going to be reviewing the set faction by faction plus the neutral cards and upload these videos consecutively. So by the time you're watching this, hopefully all the videos will be uploaded. So make sure to check out the rest of the videos in the playlist which I will provide below. And this introduction part will be the same in every video obviously, so feel free to skip it and enjoy the rest. It's time to analyze Nilfgaard faction in Way of the Witcher expansion set. Well, the school name for Nilfgaard is called Way of the Viper, and they represent resource manipulation and sabotage. And as usual, we're starting with Bronze Witcher cards in Nilfgaard. Nilfgaard's main Bronze Witcher card is called Viper Witcher. Viper Witcher is for messing with the opponent's deck. When this guy is deployed, it gives bleeding 2 to an enemy, but if you have Adrenaline 6, which is really easy to achieve, you spawn a copy of that unit at the top of opponent's deck. So if you're targeting a relatively worthless card or a cheap card, that would be really a good value to put that card on top of the opponent's deck. So in the next round, the opponent will have to draw that poor card, or a card that he or she will probably want to mulligan away. So that's a good value for the upcoming round obviously, but it is a low tempo play, so we gotta admit that. So this card may not win you the round that he comes into play, but maybe guarantee your victory maybe in the upcoming round. And Viper Witcher Adapt is the student card for Nilfgaard. And with Viper Witcher Adapt, we're being introduced to a different mechanic here. Here it says at the end of your turn, boost self by 1 if opponent has more cards in the deck than you. So the deck size difference is a new mechanic that's been introduced in Way of the Witcher, and Viper Witcher is an engine that benefits from that. So when this card is on the board, your opponent should have more cards than you. So ideally you should play Viper Witcher and then play this card, but there are other ways to get immediate value from Viper Witcher Adapt. And in a long round, this boy could become huge, not huge, but could reach up to 7, 8 or 9 power. So he could be a threat, and the opponent will probably eliminate him, just like eliminating a Magna division. And the Mentor card for Nilfgaard is called Viper Witcher Mentor. This card can give you more value compared to other factions' Mentor cards. But you need to be patient, and you need to play this guy when you have 2 cards left, and that may not be an easy task to do so. Well, the regular ability is deploying and set the power of this card to match provision cost of top card in your opponent's deck. So if you're somehow able to manipulate your opponent's deck and you know what they have at the top of their deck, well, this card is really good. But if you don't know it, if you're patient enough and wait for the last 2 cards, you're guaranteed to get a big value. Why? Because you can set power of this card to match provision cost of the highest cost card in opponent's deck instead. And if it is round 1 or round 2, you're probably getting a value between 8 to 12, something like that. So that is a really good point evaluation there, especially if you're deep in the round. It's gonna help you a lot. And Viper Witcher Alchemist is the unique bronze card for this school. The alchemist, when he deploys, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put one on the top. Then swap top card of your opponent's deck with yours. Well, to get a decent value out of this card, you need to know the top decks for both yours and your opponent's deck. It's not an easy task to do so, but we have an epic witcher that could help with that cause. But in any case, 5 power play is kinda weak and low tempo, and this is a good red coin card in my opinion. If you are playing on blue coin, playing such a card could cost you the game. So that's not an ideal scenario. But if you're playing on second, you can afford to play cards like this, and maybe you'll give the round to the opponent, but you're not going to lose a card, and then in the next round you're going to get better value thanks to this card. And we have the location card, Gwent. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. This location card, just like the others, will spawn and play one of the bronze witcher cards, and they're all useful in my opinion if you're building a deck around these mechanics. And if you're early in the round, Viper Witcher will be a good choice, and maybe the Adept could be a really good choice in the first turn of a round. And if you're gonna save these cards, and Mentor could give you a lot of value. So I like the flexibility here. And the order ability is move a unit from your opponent's graveyard to the top of their deck. So when you're playing this location card, your deck should be focused on increasing the size of your opponent's deck. Other than that, this card is useless. So compared to other location cards, this card's usage is really restricted. So I don't think this is the best location card, but in a specific deck that I'm talking about, this card's value is really powerful. And let's talk about the legendary witcher for Nilfgaard. Ivor Evil Eye is really an impressive card. Let's read the text. Deploy, swap this unit's power with an enemy unit, and if an enemy unit has huge power value on it, like Ygritte for example, and this guy's power becomes 13 and Ygritte's power becomes 4, and there you see a huge point swing there. If you're especially playing on red coin, Ivor can win your rounds easily. But the designers really thought about this card well, and they added an adrenaline too, so that you don't play this card as a last say card or the final card of the round. Why? Because you need to play it a little bit earlier. Because if you have 2 cards or less in your hand, it only damages an enemy unit by 4. So only 8 value out of 10 provision cards. It isn't an ideal situation, so you want Ivor to play for a better scenario, like having a 12 or 14 point swing, something like that. And I think this is a pretty good card for 10 provision. As you see, it's not overpowered in my opinion, and this could be an alternative to, let's say, a card like Vincent maybe. I think he's really solid. Let's move on to epic witchers, and Colgrim is the first card that we'll talk about here. Colgrim is about the deck size difference. Well, if there's a difference between you and your opponent's deck remaining cards, and this guy will boost himself by the number of the difference. And if you're planning to play Colgrim, the deck needs to be built around him. So Colgrim, in my opinion, is the new Gord, Herald Gord for Nilfgaard. Just like, for Scoia'tael or even Syndicate. If you're planning to, play a unitless deck built around playing a lot of special cards, and then Herald will be your finisher, Colgrim is just like that. You need to build your deck around thinning your deck and then putting additional cards into your opponent's deck, and then the difference will be huge and you can get numbers like 10 or 11 per turn. And this doesn't need to be the last card. It has adrenaline too, so the effect will go for 3 turns. But this could be a handicap as well, because the opponent will have opportunities to remove Colgrim from the game, so you need to protect him. That's really important. But as you see, this is a card that has huge ceiling, that can give you a lot of value and probably win you the game if he becomes unchecked. The other epic Witcher card isn't that impressive, but he has some utility value on him. This guy's name is Warrit the All-Seeing. 8 provision, 7 power card, so if you don't even use his abilities, you won't feel horrible, at least. So you're putting a 7 power card on the board, at least. Let's read the ability though. If you put this guy on melee row, he puts the highest scores card in your opponent's deck on the top of it. And then maybe you can play another card in the next turn, and you can maybe snatch that card. If you play him on ranged row, put the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck on the top of it. So if you don't have the option to snatch that card, maybe you can put a bad card on the opponent's top of opponent's deck, so the opponent will keep drawing his bad cards of his deck. So I think this is a decent card, but it's not an auto-include by any means. Legendary Beasts of Nilfgaard is really intriguing. I like the artwork, I like the design, but I'm not sure about its proper usage. I mean, when I'm shooting this video, I already saw a weird deck that produces a lot of Vipers, but I don't think its main purpose is that. The main purpose of this card is probably destroying your opponent's graveyard, eating their cards. Especially Skellige won't like this. But let's read and try to understand what he does, if you haven't already checked it out, obviously. At the end of the round, put this card in your opponent's graveyard, and it's like resilience. When it dies, the resilience card stays on the board, but this beast goes into your opponent's graveyard. But if he dies, he goes into your graveyard, so keep that in mind. Anyway, at the end of your turn while in graveyard, this graveyard could be yours if he died in that when you played him, if the opponent managed to kill him. But if he didn't, this snake will be in opponent's graveyard, and it will start banishing the lowest cards from it. So every turn it will banish a card, and when there is no card left, it gets doom tag and then is summoned into your opponent's random row. When it says opponent, it means the owner of the graveyard is the player, and the opponent will be the opposite side of the card. So suppose you're the original owner of Viper, you play it, he survives the round ends, and the next round he is in opponent's graveyard. The graveyard is consumed by Snake, and then at the when there are no cards left, Viper will again come back to you. So there is a carryover card for the following rounds. But suppose you draw this card in the final round, this card is totally useless. So you need to play it particularly in the first round. But if you play it on the second round, that could work as well. But keep in mind that there could be a lot of cards, so before the game ends, I mean, maybe he won't find a lot of targets in those graveyards, and will stay in the graveyard. I like the design, but I'm not sure about its usage. And the final Nilfgaard card is called Coated Weapons. It's a special card. I think it's better than most of the special cards introduced in this set. And first of all, Nilfgaard didn't have a 5 damage special card. Now they have it. They had Tourneyjaw's Assassination, but no direct 5 damage card. And but this isn't only a 5 damage. There is an additional effect here. If you somehow manage to death blow the card you're targeting it, that card is banished, and then spawn a copy of it on top of opponent's deck. So this is actually double-edged sword. I mean, if you're killing a card like, for example, Prince Ansei, you don't want to put a copy of it on top of opponent's deck if there is another round to be played. But if you're killing a mediocre or bad card, you're welcome. I mean, the opponent will draw that card in the final or second round, so that's pretty good. So coded weapons should be used strictly on bad cards. And if you're gonna use it on a good card, make sure that you don't kill it. Make sure it has 6 power on it. And there's that, so you need to be careful while playing this card. But if you play it, on a specific deck, the card is really useful and you need 2 copies of it, not even 1. I think this is a good card, but again, it works on a specific deck. Also, it's a tactic, so you can tutor it with Meno, and if you're using Enslave leader ability, it will help you with the ability and steal opponent's cards. And let's talk about the possible interactions. What can we do with these cards? What do they introduce? And what mechanics are being improved with the introduction of these cards? Well, the obvious answer is deck size difference. And well, Nilfgaard did always, try to put cards in opponents' decks and try to thin out the deck. There was this hyper thin deck previously, but right now it's an official thing with the introduction of Colgrim. And let's talk about the possible interactions. Deck size difference is not only Colgrim, but also student adept will benefit from that. So you need to build your deck around this mechanic. Unfortunately, there are only 2 cards, but Colgrim is really powerful, just as I talked about it a few slides before. And what do you need to do? Well, you need to thin your deck while also somehow putting cards on your opponent's deck, so that the deck size difference will get bigger and bigger while approaching the end of the game. So when you play Colgrim, you'll get a lot of points. So let's talk about thinning first. We already have thinning cards for Nilfgaard actually. These 2 thinning cards, just like in the other factions, when you play them, they call their copy from the deck, so you're gonna have 1 less bad card in your deck, which means that the chances of you drawing your gold cards is getting higher. So those cards are really popular nowadays, because you want to draw your gold cards, so you want to get rid of your bad cards, and if you can do that by playing 2 of them at once, that's great. So that's why they're being liked. But in a deck like this, these cards are more important. Also, you can play Portal and then spawn your 4 provision cards from your deck, so that could also help with your thinning objective here. Also, tutor cards like Roderick and Meno will get you an additional card, so which means that 1 less card left in your deck. Again, you're getting an advantage in terms of deck size difference. Also, Vigo could help you with that. Another thinning card, especially if you target your bronze thinning cards with Vigo. And I said adding bad cards to your opponent's deck. If we're using the thinning word for that, for the other purpose, we can use thickening. That's the name I came up with actually. So the thickening mechanic gets a huge buff in this expansion. With coated weapons and obviously Viper Witcher, they will add more cards to your opponent's deck. You can even target tokens, and then the tokens will be spawned. They will be 2-powered, 3-powered, pretty much worthless cards that opponents will really want to get rid of them, but they're gonna get stuck with them. Also, don't forget about the location card. The location card will produce Viper Witcher, so an additional chance to thicken your opponent's deck. And we had these cards as well, and Cynthia will produce a 2-powered golem and put it on top of the opponent's deck, so the opponent's decks will get bigger and will draw another crap card. Also, with a sire, you can put an additional card to your opponent's deck, but depending on the situation, maybe you can return a good card from your graveyard to your deck as well. Also, we have this infiltrator card that can also be used to, for, let's say, for the following rounds. The opponent will draw this card. It's only a 4-powered card that does nothing. So the objective will be, as you see, put bad cards, thin out your deck, and somehow try to win the first round. And then, as your final cards, you're gonna play Colgrim and try to win the game while screwing your opponent's plans and forcing him to draw really, really bad cards. And Nilfgaard is also popular with deck manipulation, but now they have more utilities, like Warrit and the Alchemist, and also mentor cards. So if you know what your opponents or you are drawing, you can manipulate them and try to draw the good cards while you're making sure that they draw their bad cards. And also this lady could help you with that cause. And tactical advantage leader ability is also, you know, good for deck manipulation. I forgot to add, but there is this neutral card, Snowdrop, again, that she could be helpful. And if you know the top card of your opponent's deck, you can always play Cantarella, and instead of playing a random card, you know what you're gonna play. And finally, let's talk about the existing decks before Way of the Witcher came out. Well, Nilfgaard was really weak, and the most unpopular faction due to the, let's say, nerfs to specific cards. They really were below all the factions. It was really difficult to get wins. Most of the time we were losing games by a few points. So CD Projekt Red tried to fix by buffing some of the cards, but we see the deck options here, but really none of them are tier 1 or tier 2. Well, Masquerade Ball is still the most powerful Nilfgaard card, so decks built around that really work well. But as I said, they were coming up short before this expansion or the buffs that came with this patch. Well, with Masquerade Ball you can basically use any leader actually. They're not the scenario is not bound to a specific leader, so depending on your choice you can always use Imposter, Tactical Advantage, Enslave. You've got lots of options actually. Still, you can use this deck, but we have Ivar cards, and he could be an alternative to several cards like Vincent maybe, or maybe Brethens. You can replace one of those cards with Ivar because he's really good, but it's an optional choice depending on the meta. You can go with the other ones as well, but I think Nilfgaard got a solid addition to their auto-include cards in my opinion. So he will always be considered as one of the good additions to an existing Nilfgaard deck. Other than regular Masquerade Ball decks, we had Hyperthin decks, which were really not that great. If the opponent knows that he's playing against Hyperthin, he'll know what to do. So it's really hard to get a win with Hyperthin decks. But we have Colgrim now, so the Hyperthin decks could be modified to play Colgrim. We had Spice synergies with Masquerade Ball or maybe Double Cross. So spies are still a thing, but there were no spies introduced in this set, so I don't see any additions, any valuable additions to those kind of decks. And there are no assimilate engines, so you can't modify them. But if you maybe add some of the deck manipulation cards, you can get more value from Cantarella. But just to get that value, is it worth to maybe get rid of cards, get rid of core assimilate cards. I don't know, time will tell. But right now, when I'm shooting this video, everybody's trying to build the best Colgrim deck, so it's really popular right now. But if you're watching this a bit later, maybe things have changed, I don't know. Anyhow, but Nilfgaard is in a definitely better position as compared to pre-Way of the Witcher expansion. So it is definitely more popular. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. And if you liked it, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're liking my channel, also a subscription will be appreciated. And don't forget to watch the rest of the episodes in this faction review series. And hope to see you. Bye bye.